What's going on, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Jake and Joe Postgame Show presented by First Star Logistics. We finally get to talk about a win, Joe Goodberry, the third time we've been officially hosting a show together, going back to the Locked On Bengals days 5 years ago, that we get to talk about a win. But this time we get to talk about it here, presented by First Star Logistics, where each week the Bengals play. We'll have a postgame show that breaks down what happened in the game, and we'll give you a chance to win some great prizes from First Star Logistics. This week, the Bengals win and you win. We have those vintage Bengals LED retro wall signs for you guys today. Two winners, one from Twitter that we'll announce at the end of the show, and you have an opportunity to win in the chat. You just have to use hashtag Houday to enter to win that LED retro wall sign. And as always, Joe Goodberry, we start with the big takeaways. And it wasn't the prettiest game, but the Bengals get to 3-4 with a 21-14 win over the Cleveland Browns, both teams leaving points on the field on missed field goals in this game. But what was your big takeaway once we get past the very superficial in my brief description of the summary of the game?
I mean, that is the biggest takeaway. The Bengals find a way to survive and continue their season. And it's ugly, but I'd rather be ugly than alive than, honestly, the Browns fans were put out of their misery today. And maybe that was in the form of Deshaun Watson, presumably rupturing his Achilles. That was very clear to see. But, maybe if he would have stayed in, this game would have went different. But I think the first play, and Charlie Jones, we should probably give some respect to Charlie Jones. I think people are a little frustrated with him, judging on some comments that, we come in here every week and then we see the comment section going. But Charlie Jones had that opening kickoff, and without it, I don't know how this game goes. The offense, again, was struggling to put points on the board, but it's a Browns game, right? They're usually ugly. At one point, they're up by 2 scores, and you feel good about that. But when the other quarterback is out of the game, you should win that way, and the Browns haven't looked good at all this year. The Bengals squeak by, ugly win.
Yeah, you can maybe start to believe Kevin Stefanski when he says that the quarterback he chose was their best chance to win games with the performance we saw from Dorian Thompson-Robinson in this game. But Jameis Winston, I think, is clearly the best quarterback for the Browns. Luckily, not something we have to spend a lot of time thinking about or talking about, because this is a show about the Bengals and not a show about the Browns. But I do think it was lucky that Winston was the emergency third quarterback today. He was not able to enter the game until Dorian Thompson-Robinson came down with an injury, quote unquote. He maybe got hurt on the interception return he threw to Geno Stone. My big takeaway for this game, Joe, is not very positive. Yes, I agree with you that they needed to win the game. And before we can talk about how they win a game, especially in Cleveland, especially in the AFC North before week 9, which was their first AFC win last year overall, not just the AFC North, where they didn't win a game until the final week of the season last year. That is an improvement, you could say, but I still have a lot of the same concerns about this offense that I had last week, where they're facing a decent pass rush and another defensive coordinator that's had their number. And the only reason they were able to get anything done is there are a handful of plays where T. Higgins and Jamar Chase step up. And you credit Chase Brown as well for his contribution on a 22-yard run. You credit Zach Moss for catching a ball wide open in the flat with nobody over the top of him for 19 yards on that drive. But for the most part, this offense struggled in this game. And that included the early part of the game where they were getting elite protection with Orlando Brown in the game. It included later in the game when Cody Ford came in and showed that he is not a serviceable backup tackle, at least against the Browns and the gimpy Myles Garrett, who gave them plenty of issues. So yes, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were enough to carry them in this game, but there are some defensive coordinators in this league, Joe, that I think have Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow's number, those being Shane Bowen, who we saw coordinate the New York Giants defense last week, this week's defensive opponent, Jim Schwartz, and next week is Vic Fangio. And the last time, and I believe only time, Joe Burrow has played a Vic Fangio defense was Denver in 2021, when they put up a paltry 15 points in a game where the Bengals knew the Denver Broncos couldn't run offense that year, so they were happy to settle for it. But I don't have high hopes that this offense is going to suddenly turn around and be better next week against a Fangio-led defense and the Philadelphia Eagles. And they need to be better in that game, I think, than they had to be against the Cleveland Browns and New York Giants. Both of those teams afforded you opportunities to set drives on fire on offense. I think there's less of that margin for error going forward, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves and stay on this game. There's something going on with Burrow and Taylor against these kinds of defenses they faced last week and this week, where Burrow doesn't seem to be processing at the level you would like him to be processing at, or receivers aren't getting open, or the Cincinnati Bengals offensive coaching staff and Joe Burrow are simply putting them into plays. And you think of the 3rd and 8 run audible. You think of the early drive plays where Joe Burrow is pulling the ball down when he has great protection in critical spots. They can't get their players into positions where they can make plays to help them too frequently against these defenses. They have their number, and that's where we talk about bad play calling, right? They're getting to the wrong concepts against the kinds of defenses they're seeing. And that's when I talk about bad play calling. Those are the things that stand out to me, Joe.
And then I think you touched on it when you get to the 3rd and 8, audible to a draw, to a run, right? And I think what it looks like on, and we'll hopefully on tape, we'll get an answer here on Bengals on the Brain on Tuesday. But, if the Bengals are so easily manipulated that you can show one thing and they'll can it and get into something else, well, that's not where you want to be as an offense. You want to be able to have an offense and a quarterback that can get you in the right play. But it seems like these coordinators and these defenses know what the Bengals are going to do. They'll show one thing. All right, can it, kill it, and then next thing you know, they're running into a bad play, or they're dropping back, and everyone's in coverage, and it's dropping right into what they expected to be an open zone or against the blitz, and the guy's not there. And I was actually surprised that the announcer during the game, I think it was Adam Archuleta, said they're playing a lot of zone. But as I'm watching, I'm like, man, these guys are matched up, and maybe it's pattern match zone, right? Maybe it's something where these corners, it felt like they were saying Denzel Ward and Newsome, you guys lock these guys up, and we're not really worried about it, because the Bengals have picked apart zone for the most part of Joe Burrow's career. And you would think with these receivers, man is not an issue. So I want to look at it on tape and look at what are the routes being run here? What are the concepts being run? Are they getting open? Are they running routes well? Because I know Chase and I know Higgins are good, but I'm starting to come away from this offense the past 2 weeks like, who is the number 3 on this team? And do they have a number 3? Do they have a guy they can go to? Or offense is even more, or defense is even more now able to take those 2 guys, focus their attention on them, and the Bengals don't have a third option to beat them. And to me, the next best player is Chase Brown. He had a couple plays. The first half, though, I was frustrated. I'm like, you're ending up in 3rd plus situations too often because you're not starting a drive with a run. Give Chase Brown a chance. And the couple times they did, it was Zach Moss. And I'm already there, Jake. I don't know if you are. I can't watch Zach Moss run anymore. Like, there's no burst. There's no power there. He's a good pass protector. He's made plays in overall in the passing game. But there's just not enough there to be an infrequent run offense. You need the chunk plays. You need the splash plays, or else it's not worth it at all to get 2 or 3 for this offense. They were 0 for 6, I think, to start on 3rd downs. It was not a great 3rd down game. You can't even end up in 3rd downs. So those 1st and 2nd down runs, if you're getting 2 or 3, are wasted downs.
Yeah, their 3rd down success rate in this game was 15%. So they can, and that essentially is, do you get a first down on 3rd or 4th down? Their late down success rate 15%. Their EPA per play on late downs minus 0.7 per play, which is insane. A lot of that goes down to Joe Burrow taking a minus 3 point something EPA sack on 4th down early in the game. But you're right, the early run game terribly ineffective as well. And you need to be able to get ahead of the chains with a run play sometimes. Doesn't need to be every drive that they go to the run. On 1st and 2nd downs in this game, according to RBsDon'tMatter.com, RBSDM.com, the box score there. 19 rushing plays on 1st and 2nd down for the Bengals in this game, 19 passing plays for the Bengals on 1st and 2nd down in this game. Exactly balanced in that regard. The success rate on those early down rushing plays, you have a guess, Joe?
Oh, I'm going to say like 12%.
Pretty close, 16%.
Yeah.
Of those considered successful runs, and the qualifier for a successful play, I believe, in this methodology is, does it increase your EPA? Does it increase the likelihood that you are going to score points? And the Bengals on 1st and 2nd down runs in this game were minus 0.28. Actually, for the run, it isn't. Just strictly doesn't help you score more points. But you would expect your success rate in running plays to be lower because you're generally achieving less yards per carry. Their passing success rate on early downs is actually pretty good. 58%, 0.29 EPA per play on early downs in this game. 37% of those going for 1st downs. That's all pretty good. Those are all above average rates, but overall, this offense today, not very good, Joe. And really, what a benefit it was to have the early special team swing that they did. They, while Ryan Rico didn't necessarily finish the game strong, got a lot of special teams wins early in this game, including Ryan Rico early in this game, who was really good, I thought, at putting punts inside the 10 and pinning the Browns deep before they needed him to flip the field a couple times late. And I don't know if it was windy or what. It seemed like a tough day for all of the specialists in Cleveland today. I think it was windy when I looked at the forecast anyway. But getting that kickoff return, uh, obviously massive play when you return the opening kickoff for a touchdown. That does a generally massive service to your chances to win a football game. It was a key difference in this game, along with the Browns missing a field goal then early in the game as well. You don't get those plays early, things could go very differently, because going into halftime when the Browns scored their Deshaun Watson led touchdown drive, it didn't have a very good feeling this game. It turned around in the second half significantly. The Bengals have a 14-point third quarter to get the 2-score lead and kind of try to ice the game from there and really kind of turtle up, which we probably ought to talk about too. We also need to get to some of the positives, almost all of those outside of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Chase Brown on the defensive side of the ball. But let's quickly finish up on the offense with how they finished the game from a play selection perspective of running it a bunch and then settling for a 50-plus yard field goal.
Yeah, so while I mentioned I had issues with the first half play calling, I felt like the flow was off. And I bet Taylor's going to say that tends to be their go-to. We just couldn't get into a rhythm, right? And it felt that way. You can honestly, it's palpable, right? You can see it, you can feel it. And then they come out in the third quarter, I'm like, okay, you've got a balance here. You've got a rhythm. You're kind of varying up your formations. You're getting Chase Brown the ball. You're getting Zach Moss the ball. You're hitting these digs and daggers, right? These things are working. And then, of course, Chase makes a play. Higgins makes a play. And that is the offense. Your great receivers making a play and Burrow distributing to the right guy and getting you in the right spot. That is the offense. But then you're right. They turtle up a little bit in the fourth quarter and unable to stay ahead of the stick, stay ahead in advantageous situations, leaving Burrow exposed a little bit too often when you don't have Orlando Brown Jr. The defense, though, they're lucky. If we want to stay on the positives are those 2 drives come out of the half in the second half and third quarter. But also the defense was so good this week. Again, 2 weeks in a row. They need to find a way to have the offense, defense, and special teams in one game, right? I get your take on the offense still before we go fully defense, but can we get all 3 phases to play a complete game once in a while? Because that's a lucky thing. It could have been a bad week for the defense again. We've seen it throughout the year to start this year. If it was, you're not even in this game. Luckily, the defense stepped up again.
Yeah, I mean, if Jameis Winston is playing the entire game, like I said, maybe it goes differently, but he didn't, and the defense did enough in this game. A few final stats here just to compare the offenses as we transition to the defense. The Bengals 2 of 13 on third downs in this game. Obviously 0 for 1 on that fourth down early on. The Browns end up 8 for 19, and some of that in garbage time for sure.
Yeah.
But if you were going to tell me the Bengals were 2 for 13 and the Browns were 8 for 19, which one is a glaring disparity in the number of plays ran, which includes which translates to the overall number of plays for each of these offenses. The Browns go 4.4 yards per play, which is not good. The Bengals at 4.2 yards per play. And that includes a couple of nice drives in there. And yes, the Bengals turtled late in the game that really drove this number down. The Bengals were leading in this category for most of the day before garbage time. And the garbage time play selection for the Bengals took that number down. And the garbage time passing offense for Jameis Winston and the Browns offense took that number up. But despite both teams having 14 drives, and I think both had kneel down drives to finish the first half and the end of the game, the Browns ran 77 plays to the Bengals 53. So yes, they got a couple of offensive touchdowns. They got a huge help from that special teams touchdown to begin the game. And otherwise, who knows what we're talking about at this point, I would say. Before we transition to the defense here, Joe, where there was some luck on their side, I think. There was some poor quarterback play on their side, but also I think they did, again, do enough. They made enough plays that I think we can be positive about that unit. Just a reminder that you can enter Houday, hashtag Houday in the chat for a chance to win that sweet LED wall. What do we call it? Wall sign. I was trying to say decal for some reason, but it's definitely not a decal. It is an LED retro wall sign that you can see there if you're watching closely on YouTube. That is courtesy of First Star Logistics, who help Joe and I do this show every week. And as always, we're very appreciative of their support. You can also enter the Twitter giveaways by following at First Star Log on Twitter for all the details there. You're going to want to make sure you're following myself and Joe as well, at Jake Liscow, at Joe Goodberry. And we'll also want you to follow Dave Lapham at DL in the Trenches for those giveaways on Twitter that we will get to toward the end of the show. Let's talk defense, Joe. And I've also got some plays we can look at if we're so inclined. But let's go to the defensive side of the ball, where Trey Hendrickson did his thing. They had some wins inside at times against a maligned and not very good post Bill Callahan Browns offensive line. What were your overall thoughts on who stood out to you on defense?
Yeah, I think we should start with Trey, and he continues to be the best player maybe on the team this year. Is he having the best season completely? And maybe Jamar Chase has gotten back into that after the first 2 weeks, but Trey has just been so dominant. And I don't think Jedrick Wills is very good, but also the Bengals did a good job of getting a matchup against the left guard as well, which you don't see from Trey too often. So I want to see what they did on tape to try and get those matchups. But he was winning no matter what. And they started chipping him hardcore at the end, and he was still winning and finding ways to get there. So there must have been some good coverage on the back half. Adam Archuleta pointed out Deshaun Watson missing open guys early in the game. Probably helped that there were guys open and they're not hitting them. But I thought Sheldon Rankins had a few wins. I thought Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt had a few wins as well, especially in run defense. Nick Chubb really wasn't effective. I think he had 11 carries, 22 yards last time I looked. And the inside linebackers are doing a good job mirroring him, staying with him. There wasn't much burst there from the running game. Wasn't really until Dorian Thompson-Robinson had a couple read option plays and got out wide. I thought Joseph Osai made a couple plays, and especially in run defense, and had a nice hit on Watson early in the game. Other than that, I was going to say, we didn't mention it yet, Geno Stone getting his first interception, felt like he was getting more comfortable. The big plays over the top weren't happening anymore, since the Chiefs Cam Taylor-Britt game, and maybe it was one after that. But it felt like they were cleaning it up and the defense was getting better. And you see the way Lou Anarumo came out, and he asked Von Bell, "Are you okay?" And then he went right to Geno, and then they get out the air cast, and his face is like, "I'm going to have to do this again at safety. I'm going to have to figure out free safety again post Jesse Bates." It's not a good thing. That stinks. And yeah, it'll be Jordan Battle. He'll get inserted, but is that your ideal free safety? Do they have one on the roster? I think you mentioned it was Dejon Anthony and Jordan Battle. I knew you were going to say it. So on the one play they needed both backup safeties to come in. So still no Tyson Anderson. I guess he's just a special teams standout. If I could do one negative on the defense, though, DJ Turner, can we get your head turned around? Can we play the ball in the air? It's got to be a point of emphasis in practice. I don't think they're playing the ball in the air and in contested situations, any of the DBs, really well right now. It's got to be a thing. I thought Cam Taylor-Britt could have pushed Njoku out of bounds instead of trying to go up against a much bigger player than you at the catch point. Just push him out. And then the 2-point conversion, DJ Turner goes up and almost goes up, to play the ball or play a hit. Push the guy out of bounds again. Like, let's attack the guys low in those situations or fight through the catch point when they're bringing it down. They're doing neither of those things. They're not getting their head around. That could be a frustrating part of the defense and an overall really strong game.
Yeah, DJ Turner on the day targeted 5 times, gives up 2 catches for 25 yards, which you would take, has a pass breakup as well, according to PFF's charting. But that penalty is brutal. And you could argue, and some people did, that Tillman threw Turner and Tillman initiated the contact. There's a lot of hand fighting, but that's going to get called way more often than not, even if it is, strictly speaking, a questionable call. The Bengals were the beneficiaries of whistles more often than not in this game, despite how it may have felt with the officials picking up the DPI flag that was clearly DPI against Jamar Chase, ruled uncatchable, which is a pretty crazy idea that was an uncatchable ball that landed 5 yards away from him when his momentum was brought to a stop because he got chucked.
We can count on one hand the uncatchable times Burrow is thrown to Chase. It does not happen.
Ron Torbert's going to Ron Torbert, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, getting back to the defense, Trey Hendrickson, according to PFF, 9 pressures in this game, 5 hurries, 2 hits, 2 sacks, and also forced, of course, that intentional grounding. So it could have been 3 sacks. It essentially was 3 sacks from a results perspective.
He missed another one too.
Yeah, he did miss another one. They had issues getting the quarterback to the ground a couple of times in this game, and even Jameis on that last drive for the Browns evaded pressure and stepped up and completed a pass. BJ Hill also with a very green score from PFF here early on. I thought Sam Hubbard, you pointed out uh, the read option play, of course, but he did contribute some in other ways in this game, of course, and the big one, the interception dropping into coverage. A lot of tipped passes in this game. That could be some of the luck that we're talking about. But we can look at that interception really quick if you're so inclined. I think I
would. While you're pulling it up,
looking at that one right now.
I thought the defensive end rotation was pretty interesting. Osai was out there a bunch, and I felt like at times over Hubbard, especially in pass rushing situations. Did it take him 6+ weeks to figure that out? And I was happy for Osai to have those flashes. But then we did have a missed sack by Miles Murphy. That was the other one when you said they had trouble getting the quarterback. I'm like, yeah, Murphy almost had a chance for a great sack. Nick Chubb gets around and just gets his thigh pad. Crazy play.
Yeah. The total snap count for Osai was at 30. For Sam Hubbard, it was at 45. Wow. The plays when Joseph Osai was on the field, according to PFF, were almost exclusively pass rush situations. So 21 rushes to 7 run defense reps. Trey and Sam both dropping into coverage 3 times each. Miles Murphy 5 times in this game. Joseph Osai 2 times. So a lot of dropping defensive ends into coverage in this game. Lou Anarumo trying to bait some plays for his defensive ends or just to get throws into windows that aren't there, where like this play we're looking at right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys showing that they might rush, but we're going to see Sam Hubbard drop out of there. And he drops out of there pretty late, to be fair. And this doesn't really generate any free rushers, but it does generate, here we have the one-on-one for Trey Hendrickson against that guard that we're talking about. You got a one-on-one over the nose tackle. You got a one-on-one on the right guard as well with some very late help. But Trey does win and gets his guy back into the quarterback's lap. And Sam Hubbard just dropping back, spot dropping, benefits from 2 Browns being in the same area. Not even sure if this was the intended receiver on the play. And you benefit from a tip drill, high pointing the ball.
Good job.
Good play for Sam Hubbard. Yeah.
So if we can bring it back too, because Friday's Bengals on the Brain was about the Bengals running a 3-4 5-man front defense and how they get into it. And sometimes it's a shift that brings the D end over to 5 tech basically. And they'll bring, here it's Akeem Davis-Gaither, but a lot of times it's Tremaine Pratt as the edge guy, and they'll drop out the other defender, giving them one-on-ones across the front because the right tackle ends up not blocking anyone in this situation. They got an interception out of it last week where BJ Hill tipped it into the air. They got a sack out of that last week for Hendrickson getting a one-on-one situation. They get another interception this week.
Really nice play for Sam Hubbard too. A lot of times those tip interceptions or defensive lineman interceptions aren't necessarily impressive plays, but that's a good play for him to drop back into coverage late because he starts rushing. He gets contact with the right tackle, then he drops out of there and then high points the ball. Good play for Sam Hubbard. I'll pull this off the screen for a moment, and I want to answer one question that I saw in the chat here. We got Bad Attitude, who was impressed with Cody Ford, needed some help, and wants to know what our thoughts are. My thoughts are that he did not hold up at all, and I'm looking for a left tackle backup ASAP if I'm the Bengals front office. I think he lost every single pass rush rep that I've watched. They'd had to go back to some of their 21 and 22. We don't have an offensive line play calling and play design at times because when Myles Garrett was going up against Cody Ford, they had no shot. I mean, it was 1.5 seconds and Cody Ford was getting demolished. So unfortunately, I don't agree with that observation. We'll see what the tape says, but every time I looked over there, it was disaster level stuff. Like, you can't function on offense with this level of stuff. So hopefully Orlando Brown is just okay.
Yeah, and I think some of the good feeling when a backup goes in sometimes is just, man, my expectations are 0. If you can give me any plays where you don't get my quarterback killed, I'm happy. And that may be what you're feeling there, as we see that from time to time when backups have to come in. As long as you're not absolutely killing every play, we'll take it. But the truth is you can't have those guys. They'll eventually will kill your plays more often than not, and that's what sinks your offense.
Yep. Let's see. Do we have anything else on the defense before film review, before we take a look at a couple more plays here, a couple of highlights, and then get to our giveaway?
get to the next highlight if you want to. And someone brought up a question about, do we have to worry about holding now with more missed field goals and worry about Evan McPherson due to some 50-plus yarders being missed? And it is something to talk about and think about. I'd have to see that hold specifically. It's really hard for us to tell unless it's obvious like it was against Baltimore. It hasn't been obvious, so it's hard to say. But, Ryan Rico, the way he's punting, he needs to get better holding if that's the issue. And we need to figure out kicking, because if this team's going to play a lot of one-score games, you cannot afford to leave points on the board through the kicking.
Hard for me to make an argument that it's holding. Maybe
right, I don't know. I'm just saying I don't know.
Obviously, the one was like, that's a mishandled snap entirely. Didn't see anything obvious today, and it's been pointed out. I think it's Bengals gridiron, or what are they?
Yeah.
Is that the right
Gridiron
handle?
grading.
Gridiron grading. Yeah, sorry. Gridiron grading has pointed out that I think Evan is 10 for his last 17 from 50 plus. This year he's just 5 for 8 from 40 plus. So he's obviously had a couple of 50 plus yard misses, and he also missed one from inside from 40 to 49 this year. He also has a missed extra point this year, I think. So not a very accurate kicking year so far for Evan McPherson, who still clearly has plenty of talent, but unlucky or just a bad streak for him. Let's take a look at a couple of highlights here, and we will get to our giveaway here. Before I highlight one comment here from Adam Bullock in the chat, Kelsey Conway asked Orlando Brown if he's going to be good. He gave a thumbs up and said he's going to be all right. So did Geno Stone, who said if it's up to him, he won't miss next week. Let's see about Geno Stone. I mean, it looked like a very clearly broken leg, but maybe they got lucky and it would just hurt a lot, and it's not broken. It looked like he took a flying knee to the shin and it snapped. But
Aiden Hutchinson thing, we just saw this. This is how, those tibia and tibias tend to break. But yeah, we got 11 guys on the field here in the frame, I should say, so we can see what's going on. We got a single high safety, so we should be going to the boundary if I think this is the right play.
Yeah, this is the Bengals' first offensive touchdown of the game. You've got motion at the snap, which is something that some fans were commenting about, I guess, on socials today. They're not doing enough motion. They're not being formation diverse. To me, the offense just stunk, and it was just an execution issue, and it was a play calling issue, and they were getting got. But here, watch Cody Ford. Just losing. Like, this doesn't go down as a pressure, but it's a disaster for Cody Ford. You know what I'll do, Joe, is I'll just put it on a slow speed here, and we'll just let the play run. Yep. And we'll put it on 0.25 speed. You got Jamar Chase singled up on top with Newsome, I think.
So the motion, he knows he's got man coverage. The single high safety stays there pre-snap, post-snap. He knows right away, hits his back foot, ball's coming out.
And that's like the vintage Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase connection. They make it look so incredibly easy on that play. That's a difficult play to time up properly and make that clean. And they make it look very easy. We'll watch it one more time here. And this isn't like a clear win or anything. This is actually relatively good coverage. But knowing that, and let's look at where Joe Burrow releases this ball. You can see that the corner's still staying on top of Jamar when Joe lets it go. So that's why the throw goes to the back shoulder here. And Jamar gets his head around first. There's separation created quite easily just by reacting. And easy touchdown there.
Yeah, good analysis.
Made to look easy anyway.
You got 5 yards to decide. You basically your release as the receiver. If you beat him off the release and beat him down there, you have 5 yards, and I'm going to throw it to the back of the end zone. If not, we're going back shoulder. So you both have to be on the same page, and you have to be honest too as a receiver. Every receiver thinks, "Oh no, I'm going to beat him downfield." No, if you didn't get over top of him, expect the back shoulder throw. That's the chemistry those two have. And
Jamar does, to his credit, often win late in the rep. Let's look at the other touchdown for the Bengals in this game. This was, I thought, another nice play. And again, there are these opportunities where the Bengals are getting man opportunities.
Yep, 11 in the screen again.
Both of them, this is the 11th guy. You can see the safety. You can see T. Higgins in a rare slot rep. And I wonder if I still have – if I can see T's snap allocation today as far as slot snaps versus wide snaps. He played 11 slot snaps in this game, which is his second most all year. He played 16 in week 5 as well. So they're getting T into the slot a little bit more this year as well. But I haven't really noticed it Joe before this play. And let's see what concept we have here. Let's see if we have a
Double
Leo up
ends,
top.
sit glance, double slants.
A double slant with Mike Gesicki doing nothing. No, that is Leo. He's trying to run a slant. He just doesn't do a very good job of it.
Yeah.
So again, what we get here is we have a corner who is playing roughly over the top, maybe slightly outside, but T. Higgins with his release must do a really nice job. I'm assuming this is Leo Lyon. Let's see what we get on the bottom.
Fade.
It is not. That is just a clear out. I'm not sure what that is on the bottom. On the top, though, you just have 3 slants, essentially.
Yep. And with that off coverage, it's easy. That's the way I'm going there. We got man off coverage. I'm picking that slide each time with T. Higgins on a 3rd and 4 situation. I'm surprised the Browns are going so off there, but they probably expected the slot fade out of that situation because the Bengals have run that with T in the past. So you got to be off. That's vintage T, though. In breaking route, catching with your hands, turning upfield, breaking a tackle, scoring, right? We've seen that a ton.
And just a very late reaction as well from the Browns DB here. I don't even know who that is. I think it was 29 at DB for the Browns on that play. And I don't know who that is. Cameron Mitchell. So they get him on a safety. And it was Cameron Mitchell. I'm looking at the PFF box score here now, and they have him responsible for one of the touchdowns. The other one we know is Greg Newsom. So good job by the Bengals to get T. Higgins lined up on a safety who only played 6 snaps.
Is that the corner out of Northwestern? Do you remember?
Yeah, he is a corner, but I guess he's had safety alignments. Yeah, he's played a lot of slot for them this year. He is out of Northwestern, a 5th-round pick last year. Doing my alma mater proud, giving the Bengals a touchdown.
That's why I pointed it out, Jake, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. Let's get to our giveaway winners here, Joe.
I've got the first one from Twitter. So make sure you, as Jake said earlier, make sure you're on Twitter, First Star Log, and you'll see it every week. They've already posted next week's, but when it's posted, there it is. Devin Chappelle wins it from Twitter at Butterbean44. Make sure you check in the comments. We post how you can win that afterwards, which is just an email to First Star Logistics. So,
and next week we got those Bengals starters jackets. I'm not sure I mentioned that. Reminder that in order to win these prizes, we have to be able to mail these to you in the United States. So keep that in mind. There's a look at those Bengals starter jackets we have as the weather's turning cold. We got 3 of them for next week. So you can look forward to that one next week. And we've got a LED sign to give away for those of you in the chat. So I hope you didn't leave too soon. If you got that hashtag WhoDay in, we got a neon sign for you, or a LED sign for you. And I want to see these. So if you win this, when you get it, tag Joe and I in the photo because I want to see where you hang this up. I'm very curious. But let's run this giveaway and we'll see who's got our second LED sign here, courtesy of First Star Logistics, who make this show possible. The winner is Brandon Nick. Congratulations to Brandon Nick for winning our second sign. And guys, those of you who won, let's get those pictures up so that Joe and I can see where
you
hang
LEDs.
these up.
I love signs, so I'd put that on my wall.
Yeah, got to get one of those for our pal Goodberry as well. And I've been getting yelled at over and over for not having anything behind me besides my bee painting back there beside my TV. Probably rightly criticized. Yeah, a bee in a different kind of way. That's right. So that's going to do it for this week's Jake and Joe postgame show. Fun to talk about a win with you, Joe, for the first time since 2019 when we didn't get to do it very often.
Remember those wins.
Yeah, me neither. The Bengals were on their way to 2-14 and drafting Joe Burrow at the time. Reminder that First Star Logistics is hiring as well. So if you're looking for work, you can check all of that out with First Star Logistics. And thanks for joining us for this week's Jake and Joe postgame show presented by our pals at First Star Logistics. Again, can't say enough about them. One of the fastest growing companies in Cincinnati. Until next time, we get to enjoy a win. WhoDay, and we'll see you next week.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.